We have a lot happening with Cyberpunk 2077 at the moment with Update 1.7, the Phantom Liberty DLC, some more info on the recent Cyberpunk Orion sequel, and all kinds of cool stuff going on in Cyberpunk 2077. CD Projekt Red apparently never gave up on Cyberpunk 2077, constantly updating the game and sticking it out through one of the worst launches in gaming history, and then coming back from the dead out of absolutely nowhere thanks to what was probably the best gaming marketing strategy to ever come into existence, releasing a masterpiece of an anime, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, alongside the coinciding Edgerunner update to go with it, forcing the Trauma team to swoop in and take the game from flatlined up to a whopping 1 million players a day playing it. Clearly seeing the potential that this series has, and I mean it really did. Even before all of the updates that have added content to the game, if it weren't for all of the bugs, Cyberpunk was already a pretty good game, just not really the one that was promised. The world that they've somehow created and expanded upon even more with the anime is just insane. There is so much depth here that it's almost overwhelming, and the end is nowhere in sight since the developers themselves call Cyberpunk a series and have talked about how much they're going to do with this universe, where shortly after they announced the sequel. Before the Phantom Liberty expansion, which we'll go over here in a minute, there are going to be a ton of game-changing improvements to appear in updates and likely even update 1.7. Obviously, we'll be getting these graphical improvements featuring an all-new overdrive mode for ray tracing, which will most likely appear in the very next update thanks to the release of the new graphics cards. It's said that the upcoming updates will expand upon the police system, which has already had quite a bit of updates in the past after the initial criticism of the cops not being active enough in the game at launch. Since then, they've become more responsive and active in pursuing you. Almost Red Dead 2 standards, where you just gently tap a civilian with your car and now you're wanted, and have to wait 15 minutes for it to disappear before you can fast travel. It's definitely better than old Cyberpunk though, where police would literally spawn right on top of you. But it seems that the developers will be updating the cop system a bit more in the coming updates, and I'm 100% for it. The game director also hinted at a new gameplay loop for the melee system, which sounds to me like there will be huge changes to melee combat, perhaps diving deeper into it rather than just tapping the trigger over and over. It's hard to say, but it definitely sounds interesting. He also mentioned new upcoming cyberware as well as new perks in the skill tree. Vehicle combat is also coming to Cyberpunk 2077, possibly alongside the cop update, which will perhaps allow us to get into more of a police chase and shoot back at the cops while we're running away. The Phantom Liberty DLC is the first and final Cyberpunk 2077 expansion, being described as a spy thriller, and had a cool little teaser trailer a few weeks back, which definitely looked pretty interesting as well, starring V swearing to defend the United States, almost like she was swearing into the military, probably undercover as a spy. Which was pretty interesting hearing female V's voice in the trailer, rather than that male Nomad V that we usually see. Phantom Liberty is set to release in 2023 and seems to be a pretty massive project considering it has the biggest team at CD Projekt Red at the moment and has been in development for quite a while. They recently had a contest for the Cyberpunk community to compete for a slot on the new radio station, which will be appearing in Phantom Liberty along with its new radio host, Ash. So if you're into making music, definitely send your track over there because the top 12 to 15 selected tracks will win some pretty cool merch along with $3,000. Plus, I mean, you get to have your music featured in Cyberpunk. CD Projekt Red surprisingly hasn't given an exact release date for Phantom Liberty yet, but it'll likely be not too long after the holidays since this music contest ends on November 30th, and it probably doesn't take a very long time to implement some music tracks into the radio. I'm sure you already saw that Keanu Reeves will be returning in Phantom Liberty, which will also be set in its own district, sounding more like a Fallout DLC where you can hopefully just venture into a whole new map rather than what we saw with the disappointing Dying Light 2 DLC. And seeing as how it's more of a spy style expansion, I'm really hoping we don't see too many brain dances. Now, the Phantom Liberty DLC as well as the coming updates have already had some skepticism and negative feedback ever since they were announced that it would be a next-gen exclusive, completely cutting out old consoles such as the PS4. And I mean, the hate is kind of fair since the game was originally said to be constantly updating after launch, not mentioning that that would only happen for some owners of the game, the ones who bought a PS5 or at least have a beast of a PC. But at the same time, I think the developers have accepted the fact that this game is never going to run amazingly on a last-gen console, and it was an extremely far stretch to think it could have on launch. We already saw in the Edgerunner update 1.6, the final update that PS4 and Xbox One would get, that some items couldn't be added into the game for last-gen versions simply due to limitations the development team were experiencing on that old hardware. Older generations will continue to get smaller updates for technical support, and that will be pretty much it. Phantom Liberty is also the only expansion coming to Cyberpunk, and while I thought it was definitely possible that the immense success of Cyberpunk throughout the last few weeks could trigger a second expansion to come along somewhere down the road, they've planned out an entire roadmap with some huge projects such as The Witcher 4 close to development and CD Projekt Red basically allocating their entire team's resource to that once Phantom Liberty is completed. And then you also have the upcoming Witcher remake, which I'm happy just to see an actual needed remake coming along. And then you also have the Witcher series, but I mean, I doubt they have a lot to personally deal with that. And then the future Cyberpunk Orion, the sequel to Cyberpunk 2077. Having all of those being worked on throughout the next few years pretty much sealed the deal on a second expansion, and even sounds like we won't see a second season to the anime, at least not anytime soon. Like I said, once Phantom Liberty wraps up development and releases, the team will split up and be sent over to a new development studio where they'll begin working on Cyberpunk 2077 sequel, Orion. There's not a whole lot to say about Orion yet, as like I said, it hasn't even begun development and is probably barely even an idea yet. There was a lot of cool mechanics and features that were cut from Cyberpunk 2077, as well as things you guys left in my comments of my videos saying what you'd like to see included in Cyberpunk, likely not appearing in updates or even the Phantom Liberty DLC, but could definitely take place in the upcoming sequel. The best idea I've seen so far is to implement a sort of encounter system where you're hunted by scavengers and having it happen more and more as you equip more cyberware, possibly being able to get hunted by harder enemies when you have better, more expensive cyberware, sort of like some of the random encounters you face in Red Dead Redemption 2, but instead of getting rolled up on and robbed in town, or some guys ambushing you on a dirt trail, you have a couple scavengers kidnap you and rob you of what gear you're wearing until you can get it back. To add on to that, it'd be nice to at least be able to visually see your cyberware and modifications, which I'm pretty sure was an original idea for Cyberpunk 2077 but was cut. I know there was some type of idea to have full-length mirrors to be able to customize your whole body. Something I'd love to see, and I think just about anybody else who plays Cyberpunk, is the ability to respec attribute points. As of now, if you want to start a new build, unless you have some mods installed, you have to start a brand new game and start the extremely long grind again if you want to go with a different type of build. A lot of the content that was promised to appear in Cyberpunk 2077 was cut from the game, a lot of it being things that made the game compete with top tier quality games, which is a huge reason Cyberpunk was originally so hyped up. NPCs were said to have entire routines depending on the time of day, following a day and night cycle like how you can follow around a NPC in Red Dead 2, but instead we got the typical mindless AI that just walk around, no more detailed than Spider-Man, and vehicles just disappear. And if you're wondering why I keep comparing the game to Red Dead Redemption 2, it's because CD Projekt Red CEO literally compared the game to it himself, while they spoke of even more features such as inviting other people to your apartment and being able to wall run. So they were originally just hyping up this extremely detailed game, and it just ended up being nothing like that. Personally, I don't know why dual wielding weapons isn't a thing yet and could totally be a feature that they implement in the DLC, and was another thing that was said to have been in the original game. I mean, they did end up cutting a ton of stuff from the game, such as skill trees and characters, so maybe dual wielding weapons could have been a skill. Or I don't know, you just equip two different weapons. Obviously, Cyberpunk was overpromised, and they didn't really realize how much work all of that was going to take, and had to release the game before being fully finished to the extent they originally had planned, so hopefully we'll at least see some of it, if not in the Phantom Liberty DLC, then the sequel would be nice as well. It seems like CD Projekt Red investors might be a little more patient this time around, seeing as how a sequel was announced right after Cyberpunk finally found some success. But that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Subscribe for more Cyberpunk videos. See ya.